Hi, my name's Rachel Hammersley and I'm a Professor of Intellectual History at Newcastle University. I've recently written a book on republicanism that traces the history of that concept from the ancient world right through to the present. The English Republic that was established after the execution of Charles I is a particularly interesting example. It was not, of course, the first example of a republic, or even the first in the modern world. But what made the English Republican experiment novel was the fact that it introduced republican rule into a nation-state that had been ruled monarchically for centuries. The English Republic was also innovative in its constitutional form. Other republics often had a single figurehead, such as the Doge in Venice, but initially the English rejected all forms of single-person rule. The Act abolishing the office of king that was passed on the 17th of March, 1649, explicitly stated that it has been found by experience that the office of a king in this nation, and to have the power thereof in any single person, is unnecessary, burdensome, and dangerous to the liberty, safety, and public interest of the people. The two-chamber system was also rejected, with the abolition of the House of Lords. All power then lay in the Rump, which took on both legislative and executive functions. In other words, it could both make and execute the laws. A Council of State was appointed on the 7th of February to engage in executive tasks such as raising armed forces and conducting relations with foreign powers. But this Council of State was dominated by MPs and remained subordinate to the Rump. The innovation of the Rump is reflected in the seal of the Commonwealth that was ready for use soon after Charles I's execution. Seals were a means of indicating that a document was official. The seal would be dipped in wax, which would then be attached to the document. Traditionally, the seal had depicted the king's head, so it was crucial that this was replaced by a more appropriate image after the regicide. Where the king's head would normally have been is an image of the House of Commons in session, reflecting where power now lay. Around the edge of the image is the striking phrase, "In the first year of freedom, by God's blessing restored," which brings to mind the French Revolution and their return to year one. The other side of the seal shows a map of the British Isles. The striking thing here is that while England, Wales and Ireland all feature, Scotland does not. This is because Scotland was not yet under the authority of the Rump. Of course, the Rump's radical republican experiment did not last long. By 1653, the army, which had been crucial both in pushing for regicide and in the establishment of the Rump, was unhappy with the progress that MPs were making towards reform. And on the 20th of April 1653, Oliver Cromwell entered Parliament with a company of musketeers and disbanded the Rump. By the end of the year, the instrument of government had been implemented, and Cromwell had been named Lord Protector. While the Rump did return to rule briefly in 1659, Charles II was restored to the throne in May 1660, and the English Republican experiment came to an end. This is not quite the end of the story, however, since the legacy of English Republican ideas lasted well into the 18th century, and even exercised an influence on the American and French revolutions.